In this video we're going to do the material for the ninja's sai, which are these two daggers on his hip over here. So this material is going to be very similar to the other metals, but it's going to be nice and dark and grungy, like a sort of old dirty blade that's been used a lot. So let's go to local view and hit Shift Z and give ourselves some nodes to work with. Okay, but if we go look at the Blender internal file over here, you can see it's basically one texture that's been used for everything. It's controlling the specular intensity, the reflection intensity, the diffuse intensity, as well as the diffuse color and specular color. And then of course we've got the same Fresnel over here with a fake reflection. So let's go ahead and find our nodes over here, select the diffuse and press Ctrl T, which is going to add all of our nodes for us. And that's of course with the Node Wrangler add-on enabled. So let's select the Sai material, or the Sai texture over here. And you can see, if I just Ctrl-Shift click that, it's a little bit of a nice texture. It's got some light parts over here and some dark bits over there. But overall it's a nice grungy texture, and this is perfect for what we want because it's got some lighter values along the blade as well as on the handle, which are the two areas that would get the most contact. The handle from the guy's hand and the blade from other people's organs. So what we're going to use that for is by controlling. There'll be more reflection on these parts because they've been sort of roughed up a bit, polished, you could think. So we can go ahead and just add our glossy shader over here. And let's just do that quickly with the roughness. Basically we want the whiter parts of this texture to have a roughness of about 0.1, which is quite sharp. And of course we want to change this to Beckmann because that's nice for metals. And then we want the darker parts of this texture to be around 0.3, which is a lot rougher. So to do that, we're going to use a color ramp, plug in the color to the color, or the FAC over there, and then we'll just drag these and clamp them down a bit to be a little bit more, give us a little bit of control, like so. I think that's okay. And then, like I said, we want these darker parts to be 0.3. Let's just go over here. We'll just set the value to 0.3 and the lighter parts to 0.1. And if you take a look at the RGB values, it's not actually the same as the value over here. And that is just because of some gamma correction stuff. So it's even more noticeable with the 0.3 going down to 0.073. So when we plug this into our roughness of the glossy shader, it's going to be a lot less rough than we're expecting. So to correct for that gamma correction, we just need to add another gamma node and change it to 0.45. And that's going to be perfect, I think. So the one thing we do want to do is plug the color into the color of the glossy shader, because a metal like this is always going to be a little bit colored. Okay. And that is it for the glossy shader. So now we can go ahead and do one more thing with the diffuse color, and that's just to darken it a bit, because the diffuse color of metals is usually not so noticeable. So we're going to want to make that quite dark, but also a little bit saturated. So again, we can use the soft light trick just by making that black and putting it on one, and you can see it's darkened it quite a lot and made it quite nice and contrasty. Okay, so the next thing to do would be to mix these two together. And again, of course, we're going to use the layer weight with the Fresnel output, and that is going to be on around about 0.7, so it's quite reflective. But then we also want to mix in a little bit of the original texture as well, because that's supposed to be controlling the reflectivity. So we'll just add a mix RGB node, change it to overlay, which is there, and plug in our texture. And that, as you can see, it's still using the Fresnel function quite a lot because it's lighter along the grazing angles, but you can see our texture poking through a little bit, and even more if we increase that to about 0.65. So that is perfect, I think. Let's plug that into the output and take a look at our shader. That's pretty cool. The last thing I want to do is the bump map, so let's go ahead and add that math node with the multiply, plug that into the displacement, and then plug our texture into the value and put the value on about 0.05. There we go. Nice subtle bump map, but it helps us. And that is it for our very simple Psy material. So in the next video, we're going to do a little bit of a glass shader on the goggles around his neck. I just want to show you what the difference is between a proper glass shader and an optimized glass shader.